All right. Looks like we're recording. All right, so just to do a little bit of housekeeping at the top here, all attendees who come in will be muted. Please remain muted throughout the presentation. We will stop for questions at the end of each agenda section, as well as at the end of the webinar. Please send in your questions as you have them using the chat feature. If you look at the very top of your screen, you should see a little chat button up there. Basically, I'm going to walk through, we're going to go through sections of the PowerPoint, and then I'm going to switch over and go into TransAM and show you what that looks like. And then I'll pause for questions. So as we're going through, just be thinking about your questions, and we'll pause for a good amount of time for questions, as I think this will be a fairly short webinar today, unless we need to go over things a lot, which will be fine. I can run through the demonstrations multiple times for you all. If you'd rather use the raise hand feature, that's also at the top, a little hand raise. When we pause for questions, you can click that and Katie will call on you, and then you can unmute yourself to ask your question. So either way is totally fine. And then just so you know, this webinar is being recorded and it will be sent to you with these slides. I have not yet sent out the slides and materials from Friday's webinar, so I think I'm just going to put these all together and get those out to you by tomorrow. So that's my plan for getting all these. So if you miss something, no worries, you will get this recording and be able to watch it all again. All right, so the agenda for today, we're going to go through the basics of TransAM. What is it? How to manage users in TransAM, and then a demonstration of user management. Then we're going to go into asset management. So these are your vehicles. And so that includes adding a vehicle, updating a vehicle, and disposing of them. And then we're going to do a little demo of that. And then I'll give you a little bit of information on contacts for assistance and training. All right, let's get into some basics of TransAM. So what is TransAM? It's an online asset management system. DRPT and its subrecipients use TransAM to keep track of federally funded assets. So for Section 5310, this means vehicles. There's other programs that we do other types of assets for, but for you guys, it's always just vehicles. Subrecipients should use TransAM to track only those vehicles purchased through the 5310 program. So this is a really important point because this is an inventory system, but only for your 5310 vehicles. We want you to keep your other non-5310 vehicles out of this particular system, just so we can, keep track of things very easily on our end. So yeah, that just says if you have any vehicles in there from the past, please remove them. I think you all, or a lot of folks, did a cleanup in the past of those. So this system, TransAM, is required for you to keep track of your 5310 vehicles. So if you're an awarded subrecipient, we require you to at least use this for basic inventory of the 5310s. You can use it in a more robust way if you choose. You can track maintenance. You can make a lot of different notes and updates, including oil changes, state inspections, and other maintenance if you choose. But the really baseline stuff of what you have to do is what we're going to cover in today's webinar. I just wanted to show you, you're going to see this in a moment when I do the demo, but this is the TransAM landing page, and I just kind of highlighted the URL up there. I recommend you bookmark that. I know I have all these sites bookmarked on my browser just so I don't have to remember what to type in and try to find it on Google every time. So just wanted to show you all that. And then, so getting into user management TransAM. A really important role in TransAM, and just kind of at least one person that you need in TransAM, is your manager role. So that should be filled by the main person responsible for the TransAM account. This would usually be like a fleet manager, someone who's actually, taking the vehicles when they're delivered, and then entering them into TransAM, and then doing those periodic updates that we're going to talk about. Um, so, I mean, if you don't have a fleet manager, it's whoever does that for your organization. Make sure that your manager is a current staff person. So if there's someone who's left your organization who used to do that role, um, I'll probably mention this a few times, but if you don't have a current manager or you don't know who your manager is, just reach out to me. I'm the only one who can set you up with a brand new manager. Once you have a manager, you can add your own users, but that manager position, if you have someone new in that role, we should just get them set up with a new account so you guys can access everything there. Once you have a manager, they're the ones who can add and remove other users from your organization. And we do, recommend that you have more than one staff member as a user in TransAM. So in the user section here, you can have an unlimited number of staff who can assist with TransAM functions. And it's helpful to have more than one user in there, just in the event your manager or someone else leaves. You have the ability to go in and still add, update, and dispose of assets, because managers and users can add, update, and dispose of your assets. So the manager role, the real difference between the manager and a user is just that they can add staff members, add or remove staff members. So that's why you really want that manager role in there, and then you can have as many staff as you want. There's a few references in these slides to the user guide. We're gonna talk about that as well here in a second. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch over and do a little demo of user management in the system. So I'll just ask for your patience as I switch over here. All right. Okay, so you should be seeing the TransAM homepage that I showed a moment ago. And I wanted to land here because, this is where you're going to log in. So this is the screen you will see. You'll enter your email and password here. Just to note that if you think, oh, I have an account with my email, but I don't remember the password, or it's been a year since I've used it, you can always go through the forgot your password. You know, you can click on that and have it get you set up with a new password. So if you've forgotten your password, I'd say your first step is to try to do that forgot your password. And if you still can't get in, then contact me and I'll see what you look like in the system. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. So the first note I want to make is the screen you're seeing is, I see everyone's accounts and vehicles. You will not see this amount of information on your home screen because I'm an admin of the entire system. So all of the organizations that are in the system, I can see those right now. So you'll just see your own organization when you log in. But I am going to go ahead and just choose one organization to show you all user management so you can kind of see what that would look like on your end. So I'm going to go in as DRPT. We're just kind of a test account here. So again, you don't have to worry about this part because I'm just switching over. This is probably more what you'd see, but you'd see a few vehicles over here. So right now I'm in an individual account. So if I go over and I click on my profile or my little person here, I can go in and you can see it says DRPT. you would see your organization's name here. And you can click on that. And here you can kind of just see an overview of your whole organization. So you can see all of your staff members. You can kind of see, some information about your organization, any sort of contact information, your address. And you can also, you'll see this actions button a lot of places. We're going to use that for different things, but this is where you can go in and update your organization. So this information here is just going to take me to a page where I can, update my phone number, my web page, just some basic information. In theory, this information doesn't need to change a lot. I just wanted to show you where that's located. And then you probably saw on this page, the staff. This is in TransAM. I'll just say there's usually multiple ways to access information. So like I said, if you're in the staff tab up here, you can see your staff and click into them here. You can also go back to your little person and click on users, and that's just going to give me the exact same list. And here is where, as a manager, I can add a user to this list. So I can both click into users and, well, this probably won't look like this because this is all of our organizations, but you can kind of see a little bit of information about your user and their role. And then if you want to add a new user, you can just click add a user. And then you're just going to go through this form and, choose your organization, choose your role. So I just wanted to point out the role not popping up. Oh, I think I have to choose. Here we go. Let's just choose one. And then you can see, these are really the two roles that you would use, is a manager or staff. So again, you probably just have one manager and then you can have multiple staff members. This is not really relevant necessarily to you. If you wanted to use this, you could. Again, you can see it's not a required field. So it's just as long as they're staff, that will give them that ability to do that asset management. So then you'll just want to go through and fill out this form and click create user right there at the bottom. I'm just going back to the user page, and if I had created that user, they would pop up here. You can kind of see, just as a note, since I didn't save that user, or I didn't create that user, it disappeared. It's not going to be saved as like a draft or anything anywhere. So just make sure, when you're going into these forms, you're filling it out and going all the way bottom and hitting create user or submit, or, if there's other forms that you're filling out, you'll just need to make sure that you're getting that submitted. All right, so that's basically this section where, as a manager, you would go in and add a user. I did want to show you something else real quick. So I'm just going back, I'm clicking the home button to get back to my home page. And then I want to show you, we'll go back to this, but that guidance that the PowerPoint referenced, that is actually right here at the bottom of the screen. I think it's a little hard to see. It's in this gray bar. But you can see this HSP user guide. That means Human Service Provider User Guide. So this guide was specifically put together for 5310. And I'll also send out, a PDF of this with my email. But anyone who logs into TransAM has access to this as well. And this truly just goes over exactly what we're going to go over today. Plus a little bit more information. This user manual will also include bulk asset updates, which I'm not going to go over here, just because most folks don't have huge numbers of vehicles, unlike some of our larger transit agencies. But it goes through literally step by step exactly what you need to do that. So this is also very helpful for just, if you don't want to watch the video, or if you still have questions, it can be helpful to just read through step by step how to do everything. So just wanted to point that out. That's always available to you on TransAM. Okay, I think I'm going to pause for questions here. I'm going to stop sharing and go back to the PowerPoint. So give me just a minute. Actually, I'll keep sharing my screen in case any of you have questions about this. So anyone have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or chat. I'll give it a few minutes. Or if you want me to walk through anything again, I'm happy to do so with user management. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, go back to the PowerPoint. Just a second. All right. Okay, so sounds like there aren't any questions about user management. Again, I'm always, here to help outside of this presentation if you guys have questions. But let's go ahead and get into asset management. So this is your vehicles in the system. So again, I'll go through my slides first, and then we'll go into the system and kind of click around and do everything. So adding an asset, all new Section 5310 vehicles should be entered into TransAM within 5 days of delivery. Again, please don't enter non-5310 vehicles into TransAM. You can manually add assets one at a time using the on-screen form within TransAM. And you can enter one or more assets at a time using the bulk uploads feature within TransAM. So this option uses an Excel template that you fill out to input the vehicle information. So it gives you a template that you fill out, and then you upload it into the system, and it populates it all in there. That's just an option for y'all to use, but I'm just going to show you the one at a time adding, since usually you guys get, up to a few vehicles at a time in a delivery. And again, this just gives you a little reference on where to find that information in the user guide. When you're updating an asset, so all assets recorded in TransAM are required to be updated twice a year for 3 data points. So by January 15th and July 15th, please update the service status, the condition, and the mileage. I will point out, I would say the mileage is the most important. Most important thing to update. That is something we look at when you apply. So that January 15th date is on purpose because when you submit an application, by February 1st, we are looking at whether you have updated TransAM specifically for the mileage of any replacement vehicles, but also just in general for your whole inventory, because this is like a compliance thing. So these are the required dates, but you can again go in and use that system more. You can, update it multiple times a year on your schedule. This is just what we require. So the service status is, you'll see when we go through it, but it has an in service, out of service, or spare option. This is really, I guess, one note I want to make about these condition updates is that when you make these updates, it does not trigger anything for us. Like, we don't get any notifications that you've put something out of service. We don't get a notification that you've updated the mileage. This is also just kind of for you to know, okay, this vehicle is still in service, this one's out of service, because it's in for repairs, and we don't know how long it's going to take. It's kind of just a management system for you as well as for us to check for that compliance. So data can be updated manually for each data point and asset, or again, it can be updated using bulk updates feature for one or more vehicles. And that also uses that Excel template. So in theory, I don't know how useful the bulk updates might be unless it's, you're putting a bunch of vehicles out of service, for example, but the mileage will probably, all vary because you're actually going to put that odometer reading in for each vehicle. The last point is disposing of an asset. So this would be, and again, if I know not all of you might have been on the webinar on Friday, but once you've decided to dispose of a vehicle, it's reached the end of its useful life, 4 years and 100,000 miles, or we've approved some other disposal timeframe. Once you've reached out to me, we've gone through that process, and you've actually disposed of it, you'll want to go into TransAM and mark it as disposed. So it will actually remain in your list of vehicles, but show as disposed rather than actively in use. And this is kind of helpful because particularly in with managing vehicles in TransAM, it's helpful because you have the VIN number in there, and that's kind of how we track all vehicles is by the VIN number, since that's, that unique identifier, and we can actually tell which vehicle that is. So it's helpful that it remains in your list of vehicles because, several years down the road, you might have another disposal request, or maybe someone else is in your role and they're like, oh, did they dispose of that vehicle? Is it still around? I don't know. And they can actually go into TransAM and see, oh, wait, yeah, they did dispose of it several years ago, so we don't have to worry about that. So it is a helpful record of, what's currently active in your inventory versus something that's been sold or donated. So at the time of marking a vehicle as disposed, you'll need to know how it was disposed, what day, the mileage at the time of disposal, and the sales price, if applicable. So again, you'll probably know this all by the time you have disposed of it, and just make sure that you have that information ready for when you actually do mark it as disposed. This is a point that comes up a lot, which is if the disposal is occurring early, according to TransAM, a DRPT staff member will have to accept the disposal for it to be finalized in TransAM. So when we say according to TransAM, this is because the system is set up to recognize 4 years and 100,000 miles as the useful life, and it will allow you to dispose of it if the vehicle has those things updated in its service status that we talked about. So if it's not, so for example, if say the vehicle was totaled, or say I approved of you disposing a vehicle, early, say it's, I know a lot of folks maybe have a 10-year-old vehicle that has low mileage because of whatever reasons, and we've talked about it and I've approved of it. When you go to dispose of it, and I'll show you this in the system, you'll have to click a button that says request early disposition. So again, this is not necessarily something that triggers anything for me. I will, outside of the system, I'll get a little notification inside the system, but it's not emailing me to say, oh, this person has requested an early disposition. So it really is something that we need to talk about before you do that final TransAM disposition process, so then I know to go in and go ahead and approve that. All right, so we are going to go into the demonstration. I'll go through these points, so bear with me again as I bring up the screen. All right, I'm just going to check and make sure it hasn't logged me out. All right, I'm still in here. Okay, so I'm going to use a couple of different organizations as examples. just for adding an asset and updating an asset. So like I said, I'm in my admin view. This is not what you would see, but I'm going to go in and select an organization that's in here, but actually doesn't have any vehicles to show you adding an asset. So again, in theory, this is kind of more what you would be seeing. You'd be seeing your organization when you click on your profile. And then how to add an asset is on this side of the screen, the left-hand side. The only button up here that you will probably ever use is this little bus button. This is your inventory. So when we want to go in and add an asset, I'll first show you the inventory list. If you want to look at your list of vehicles, you'll click on revenue vehicles right under this bus. Now, I know that for a fact that this organization does not have any vehicles entered in here. I'll show you a different organization with vehicles so we can look at those and do the updating. But in theory, like if this is your first vehicle, or if for some reason you haven't used TransAM yet to enter vehicles, this is what you'd see when you go to your inventory list, just a blank form. So instead, we're going to go back up to this bus, and we're going to click on Add Asset. So this will start you at the very beginning with prompting how to choose an asset. All of your assets are classified as buses or rubber tire vehicles under revenue vehicles. This is just a classification within TransAM. I know you might not think of all your vehicles as buses, but this is just how we classify all 5310 and most 5311 vehicles. And I will say also, this is all explained step by step in that user guide, including exactly which items to choose in this list. So don't worry if I don't touch on everything here. It's all laid out there, but you'll always choose buses, rubber tire vehicles, and you'll click create new asset. So this will lead you into this kind of long form with all of these fields, and you'll just start going through. And I just want to point out again, so here's where you're going to set the service status. So it's a new vehicle, it's going to be in service. Really important point here, your VIN number. Make sure that it's correct. I would double check it. I know I look at VIN numbers a lot, and it's very easy to transpose letters and numbers. This is going to be an easy way for you to search your vehicle in the inventory, which we'll look at in a second. But just make sure that's accurate. The asset ID is something that you will actually choose yourself. So, you could just use number 1 if this is your first vehicle, or if you have some kind of, if you already have some kind of internal system of, tracking your vehicles, if they have specific numbers, then you can just put that in there. That's up to you. A lot of these other ones are kind of explained in that user guide of just what to set them as. I believe like here, you can see here, a cutaway would be like a BOC, MV would be a minivan, VN would be a van. That would really be the 3 options that you guys would be using. So BOC, a minivan, or a raised roof van. The cost, the purchase cost, that should be, when you, your award amount is a good thing to put there. Funding type, let's see, I haven't even looked at these. Oh, here we go. Enhanced mobility of seniors and individuals with disabilities. That's us, right? So you'll just kind of go through, and you can follow along with what's in your contract and what's in the user manual to fill out most of these fields. The other one I wanted to point out was service status. In-service date, that's a good one to put in as well, just so we know exactly when it went into service. And then basically when you filled all this out, you're going to go and you're going to add asset and go to new record. I'm actually not going to click on this right now because one, don't have all this information to fill out, but we're going to actually look at what that record will look like here in a second. again, I'm going to move on for now. We can come back to this in a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and show you updating your assets. So you'll click add asset, your asset will be created. And then I'm going to go ahead and show you what your inventory list would look like once it's populated with all your new vehicles. So I'm just going to go to a different user here. Second. I'm just going to use Jaunt because they have a pretty substantial inventory. All right, I'm going to go to the home page. So now I'm in Jaunt's organization. Again, if you have vehicles, you'll kind of start to see things get populated up here. You can see there's 86 vehicles in their inventory. I'm going to click on this bus and I'm going to click on revenue vehicles. And you can see here, they got a big inventory of vehicles. So once you, again, create that asset, populate a bunch of those, you can start going in here and seeing what that looks like. So another important point I want to make, which is actually a really helpful feature of TransAM, is that it has a really good search function. So you can type in, whatever you need to search this whole table, which again, they've got 86 rows, 86 vehicles. They probably just want to find a VIN number and search by that instead of, going through this whole list trying to find it. So I'm just going to do this as an example, enter in their VIN. This looks like it came out a little funky. Right. So once that VIN is in there correctly, you can see now this vehicle just popped up by itself. So that can be really helpful when you're kind of going through and figuring out which vehicles you need to update. So you can see you can search it by or filter it by asset ID. I guess I'll show you this too while I'm here. You can hit these buttons to do, lower to higher, higher to lower. It's just again, a way to look at it if that's how you've set up your system by asset ID. And you can do the same thing with all these other buttons as well. All right, I'm just going to click into one. Here we go. All right, so now I'm in an individual profile of a vehicle. And you can kind of see here's, the VIN up top, some more information about the type of vehicle. And then right up here at the top, this is a helpful section because you can actually see a complete record of all the actions done to this vehicle over the years. And you can go back all the way to the beginning and see, when it was added and then when the mileage started being recorded, as well as who did the action on it. So that's really useful, again, to see if there's any like condition or status changes, how the mileage has changed over time, who's been in the system doing the updates. Because I know, when staff changes over, it's kind of hard to get a handle on who's done what or who had what access or was doing updates over time or where the updates left off. So this way you can kind of see, oh, if this was a year ago, someone, needs to come in and update this again. So this is really helpful, I think, for just the history of the vehicle in TransAM. And then you can kind of go down and just see, this is just all that information that we, would have populated in that new asset form. The VIN number, your asset ID, type of vehicle, et cetera, et cetera. So you can kind of see this profile section will have that mileage, the current mileage, whatever it's at. So that will update as you do those status updates. So updating an asset. The most important thing here is going to be going to this action tab. So again, we're in the individual profile. I'm just updating one vehicle. And I'm going to go over to this update button. And I'll just point out the mileage because this is the one I'm saying is most important. You're going to go in here, click mileage, and literally just type in your current mileage. the date, and any comments. Comments is not required, but if there's something you wanted to note about it for yourself, then you could just put that right in there and click update the mileage. So that's what you need to do at least twice per year. You can do it more often. I'm going to use this little navigation up here to just go back to my vehicle and just show you the condition. So this is meant to be on a scale from 1 to 5. This is just kind of, oh, here it is. It's explained over here, sorry. When you put it on the scale, you can put it in poor, marginal, adequate, good, or excellent condition. Again, this is kind of just helpful for us and you to get an idea of how that vehicle is, if there's anything that's gone wrong with it. Again, you can put comments in here that can kind of say, if it had some repairs or something happened to it, you can go in there and do that update. And going back, go to update the service status. So this one is, again, if you take something out of service, or if you've actually disposed of a vehicle but kept it as a spare, you can mark it as a spare here. Now, this is a little bit of a different process. Again, we talked about this on Friday a bit. This would be if you requested a disposition of the vehicle, or rather you requested, disposition, and I gave you the title and you said, hey, we don't want to sell it right now. We actually want to just keep it as a backup. Any vehicle that's a backup for 5310 still has to be used only for the eligible population. So older adults and people with disabilities. But I would ask, and I would ask you this when we had this conversation, to go ahead and go into TransAM and mark that as a spare, just so we can see that that's actually not currently in your fleet. It's sort of being used as a backup vehicle. If something is out of service, that's not necessarily the same. Well, it's not the same as it being disposed. So I'll go through disposition in a minute, but this might be something you would want to mark, like if you were, for example, getting together your vehicles that you wanted as replacement vehicles for your next 5310 application. And you said, we're going to go ahead and take these out of service because we're anticipating getting these vehicles in to replace them. So anything that would take your vehicle out of service, it could also be, like I mentioned, like long-term repairs. And you can mark, again, the status type right here. So, or even if you're just putting it in storage for whatever reason, or if it's awaiting sale or disposal or replacement. So that's some of the reasons you would mark that out of service. Again, this is kind of just a way, especially on those 2 times a year when we go in there and check for your updates, we can just kind of see the status of your vehicle fleet quickly. So that is a really helpful one for us to have as well updated. All right, so the last thing I'm going to get into is vehicle disposal. So again, I'm in my vehicle. I've decided this vehicle has reached the end of its useful life, which in fact it has. It's 11 years old. It's over 100,000 miles. It's in poor condition. This guy needs to be retired. You've talked to me and said, hey, can I have the title? We're going to dispose of this vehicle. We're going to sell it at auction. Said, go ahead. You've gone ahead and sold it. And then you're going to go in here and you're going to record your final disposition. So this will be really the last action step for this vehicle. You're going to record the date, the type, which could be transferred, traded in, disposed, other. You can use dispose or other if you're donating it, I would say. The sales proceeds, the mileage at disposition, And again, any comments, particularly if I would say if you've transferred it, this is actually really helpful because you can actually say, hey, we actually transferred it to this other 5310 who's in here. You know, maybe we transferred it to Giles. I know they're on here. They just got this vehicle, and you might just want to put a comment in about that transfer. So then you would go ahead and hit record disposition. I'm not going to do that right now, obviously, but that would update the vehicle and just show, you know, that it's disposed. In this case, it would show that it was transferred, but Giles would actually have to go in and add that vehicle into their system as well. So that wouldn't necessarily transfer it over in the system, but it indicates on your inventory that it has been transferred. So just a little note there. All right. I know I've gone through a lot, so we're going to go ahead and pause for questions, or let me know if you want me to go back over anything here.
Jess, I know we have one question in the chat from Karen.
Okay. Okay.
That if you do not have an asset ID at the time of entering vehicle information, can DRPT be contacted to add that information at a later time?
I feel like you should be able to update your asset ID, but let me check. I could be wrong. Maybe not. That is a good question, Karen. In theory, yes, I could update that. I'm not even seeing my option to update that now. So I might have to get back to you on that one. I think Karen wants to come off mute.
I did, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so in the past, we've when we receive the vehicles, they go over to our county fleet department, and it could take several weeks before we get that asset ID number
Okay.
and it going into actual service when our
Okay.
program picks it up. So
Okay.
can that service date also, excuse me, can that service date also be entered at a later time after I've entered it? Because in the past I've waited, and so it's
Yeah.
gone beyond the 5 days to enter it into
Right.
TransAM, just so
Right.
that I wouldn't have to, you know, contact you or someone else at the
Right.
department to enter
Yeah.
that information for me.
Yeah. Honestly, Karen, I would just say just wait. Just wait, go past that 5 days, just enter it in when you have it.
Okay.
We really say that 5 days just because we want to make sure people aren't forgetting about it and never entering the vehicles, which does happen.
Okay.
So please, if you know you're just trying to get your information together, please feel free to put that all in once you have it.
Okay.
And yeah, that I think there's again some places to put comments, but you know you can make a little note like we received the vehicle on this date and then whatever entered it on this date. So
Okay.
that's
No, that's a
always
good
fine to do
idea.
as well. Okay,
Yeah, that's a
cool.
good idea. Thank you.
Yep.
Then I think we have another question from Elizabeth. We have 2 vehicles under equipment, and you can add them to the revenue vehicles category, but then how can you delete them from the equipment category?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, they definitely need to be put under revenue. It's funny, I don't even really go into the equipment because we just don't use it, but I would say I'm just going in here right now. Why don't you just send me the information about those vehicles, the VINs, and I can go in and see if I can remove them. It might just be that we'll have to mark them as disposed or make some other note about them. But if you just want to send me the VINs, I can take a look at that. All right, well, as always, if you guys have other questions or need me to walk through anything, or even if you have other staff members who couldn't make it, or, you know, you need a little walkthrough with, I'm happy to set that up with you guys. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here and go back to the PowerPoint. Oh, did Karen still have a question? No, okay.
Yeah, I don't see anything else in the chat.
Okay, okay. Let me go back to my presentation. All right. Went through my questions. The last thing I just want to touch on was, again, any troubleshooting, I recommend the user guide, reaching out to me. I will say on the, in the system itself, I think there's probably some options to contact Cambridge Systems. That's the company that has built this system, or any of these kind of like help desk features they have. Don't use those. They have actually, you know, they've asked not to provide direct support. So if there's something we can't figure out or I can't figure out, I'll contact them if we need to kind of elevate it to that level. So yeah, I wouldn't, you know, reach out to them, and because you'll just be waiting forever to get a response. Just reach out to me or check the handbook. With that, that is pretty much the end of this presentation, unless anyone has anything else they've thought of, but just want to say thank you all for participating. I'll, you know, again, I will have the recording of this. So we'll have a YouTube link as well as that manual and these slides that will get sent out to you all. I'm planning on sending it in the same email from DRPT. So not from me directly, but from the kind of that gov delivery system. That along with Friday's webinar, just in case you missed that too. You'll have all those together. And if anyone hasn't been getting those DRPT gov delivery emails, I'm planning on having all the registrants from this webinar and from the Friday webinar, you know, added into that email list. So, you know, you should be getting it. You might want to check your spam folder if you're not getting those emails. Sometimes I know it goes over there, but yeah, with that, unless there's any more questions, I'll go ahead and wrap up. But I appreciate you all coming today, and reach out to me if you need anything. And I know some people emailed me after the Friday webinar, and I'll be catching up on all those emails as well. So thank you all. I'm gonna stop recording.